What are Faithful Phoebe's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. First off, I want to start by saying that one of Phoebe's biggest pros is that she does damage, and a whole lot of it, yet she doesn't deal her DPS in any normal way. Oh no, my friend. This right here is our first DOT DPS. That's right, the Spectro Frazzle Echo set finally has an actual user. You love to see it. If you're looking for a powerful main DPS to bolster up your account, then look no further than this lovely lady of high faith. She's one of the best in the business. You'll get all of your DPSing needs out of her. She's going to be extremely powerful on release, which is very impressive when you consider that she will mostly be utilizing cheap 4-star teammates. I'll delve into that more later on. So why choose Phoebe over any other DPS? Well, her playstyle is very unique. Essentially, she has two modes, a main DPSing mode and a sub DPS mode in which she plays more as a second slot teammate. We haven't got many uses for our sub DPS mode at the moment, but if we get a character in the future who's able to trigger DOT procs, then that form will most likely come to light. Hilarity. Anyways, your only use for that at the moment will be Changli Phoebe Quick Swap. Even if this isn't all that relevant right now, it's still something cool to consider for later down the line, should it ever become greatly relevant. So when you pull for her, you're technically gaining access to two playstyles. But as it stands, only her DPS playstyle will be relevant upon her arrival, so we'll be honing in on that today. Otherwise, you're most likely going to be playing her as a Spectro main DPS. What does that playstyle offer? Well, essentially, Phoebe grants herself a crud ton of valuable buffs when she attacks enemies that have Spectro Frazzle applied to them. This means that Spectro Rover is a must with her. She'll grant herself a whole lot of heavy damage amp, crit rate, and Spectro damage amp from 5-piece Eternal Radiance. There's a whole lot of juicy buffs you get out of this, so she leans heavily into being an offensive DOT unit that plays well with other Spectro Frazzle users. This means that should we ever get an upgrade over Spectro Rover down the line, Phoebe's max power level will increase. When you consider how strong she is at a baseline, that's pretty impressive. Another really cool thing about Phoebe as a main DPS is that she doesn't really demand the use of Arena or Shorekeeper. Because she has so many buffs that she provides herself, she isn't able to take advantage of their buffs as well as others, meaning that you're able to put together two other TOA teams more easily. So this results in her having pretty nice overall account value, as she allows your other comps to take advantage of those high value supports. Awesome stuff. Speaking of which, we should definitely delve into how free-to-play friendly her teams are on the whole. Spectro Rover is a completely free character, who we have had access to since the very start of the game. It's lovely to see Kuro finally giving the lad a use case, since before, there wasn't really any reason to use them, but here we are. With that being said, they are going to be one of Phoebe's best in slot teammates. In fact, they're kind of glued together, because she really wants that delicious Spectro Frazzle application, and Spectro Rover costs absolutely 0 Astrites whatsoever, while having all of her sequences available for free. So that's one thing. Then, you have the oh-so-fabled Sanhua. You see, because Phoebe grants herself so much heavy attack amplification, she can actually take great advantage of Sanhua's huge basic percent buffs. Then, you can pile all of her other positive qualities on top, such as taking practically 0 field time and being able to offer up to 20% extra attack from her S6. The only con is that unless you recently pulled Ferocia, your Sanhua is going to be busy with your Camellia, assuming that you're a Camellia main in this scenario. However, fear not, because we're not out of options yet. Because while Sanhua might be preferable, a large portion of Phoebe's DPS output as a main carry is her heavy attack damage. Therefore, none other than everybody's favorite angry scientist, Mortefi, will be an excellent 4-star teammate for her. So this will be a very effective alternative should your Sanhua already be in use. I should also mention that a higher investment Phoebe is actually going to prefer Mortefi. If you go S3 plus on her, then the Furious Scientist would actually be preferable to achieve the highest performance out of her. So you can use Mortefi over Sanhua if you want to save her for Camellia, or use Sanhua if you want to save Mortefi for your handsome Gion. Another cool thing to note is that she's already really powerful as it stands, even when paired with 4-star teammates. This is only the beginning of the DOT playstyle. Give it some time, and there's a high chance that her power level is gonna shoot through the roof, should Kuro introduce a brand new 5-star teammate designed to support DOT-centric playstyles. Obviously, don't pull for a character based on how good they might eventually become. That's just silly. Only pull them after they have gained their large amount of value. I mostly wanted to highlight how impressively she performs on 4-star teammates alone, making her an excellent free-to-play friendly unit, and show how bright the future is for this Lady of Light, because she doesn't have a proper dedicated best in slot buffer at the moment. Also, because you receive a copy of Sanhua for free during the game, and Spectro Rover is quite literally the first character that you obtain, she ends up being very beginner friendly too. Anybody can instantly form a competent team with her right from the get-go, making her a splendid addition to any account. Another brilliant aspect of this unit is that she's great in every scenario. What I mean by this is that there is literally no situation in which Phoebe is not going to function well. She is highly competent in AoE, single target, and multi-wave, as long as you make sure to reapply Spectro Frazzle. Her kit tends perfectly to them all, no matter the situation. This makes her super versatile, allowing you to make great use of her regardless of whatever the current TOA rotation is. She'll feel comfortable in all sorts of combat events too. She has a large AoE on most of her important abilities, and her playstyle is very easy for anybody to understand, despite utilizing fresh mechanics. So anybody is easily going to be able to yield value out of her, in whatever situation it is that they need help in. This further contributes to her being a very beginner-friendly main DPS pull. I'd like to add that because she has a ranged playstyle, this makes her an excellent choice when wanting to deal with really annoying enemies that zip around the place a lot, often falling out of your range. Dealing with fools such as Thundering Mephis has never been easier, with rinascita introducing such excellent ranged DPSes in the form of Carlotta and Phoebe. This level of versatility means that her shelf life is definitely nothing to scoff at, because her potential can only rise from here, while being applicable literally everywhere. Plus, there's a little something that I'd like to touch on in particular. That's right, Phoebe is going to have absolutely excellent multi-wave capabilities, as long as you reapply Spectro Frazzle to each new enemy wave. So why is this important to note? Well, you see, our only previous main premium Spectro DPS was none other than Jinjo's Magistrate Jinchi, and while she too is applicable in literally any conceivable scenario that you can think of, she's a little bit overkill in multi-wave scenarios. Not to an extent where it turns the character into a total deal breaker, but enough so to the point where it'd be nice to have a unit that could deal with multi-wave a little better. Phoebe isn't a nuke DPS. She's a damage dealer that sustains her numbers over time, in true DOT fashion, making her far more suited to these kinds of encounters. I do not think that Phoebe is replacing Jinchi for the record. This is going to be its own topic for another day, but I wholeheartedly believe that these two can very easily coexist on one account. Phoebe is not decreasing Jinchi's pull value, even if they both share the same element. The TLDR as to why I feel this way is because they do not share teammates. Thus, neither steal energy points from supports that either or would want to use. Either way, this is still a great convenience that I wanted to mention. As it stands, the other two DPSs that we currently have right now that I would consider to be super good at multi-wave would be Camellia and Gion. So, adding more to that roster is always nice. And should there be more AoE-centric game modes added in the future, Phoebe will absolutely thrive, because her abilities are able to hit so many enemies with ease. To be honest, there are very few cons to this character. I suppose there's the fact that her sub-DPS mode is going to be pretty useless upon her arrival, but that doesn't matter all that much, because based on what Kuro has officially revealed to us, Phoebe's DPS mode is more than strong enough to satisfy. Besides, this opens up future potential for her more than anything else, especially when you consider how well she performs on such cheap, easily playable beginner-friendly teams. However, there is one particular con that I can point out about her. That'd be the fact that she's tied to Spectro Rover. You see, she really wants that good Spectro Frazzle application to access all of the crazy innate buffs stored within her kit. She doesn't apply all that much in her own inner DPS mode, so because of that, you need to stick a Spectro Rover by her side. That on its own doesn't sound all that bad. Another excuse to use the very cool looking main character, not to mention the fact that Spectro Rover has finally acquired a meta use case? Sign me right up. However, this means that you're missing out on using Havoc Rover, and Havoc Rover is very strong. Like, for a free unit, they are super well tuned power level wise. So it's very realistic that quite a few of you may have built teams around the lad at this stage. However, because Havoc and Spectro Rover share vigor counts, you'll have to find a replacement for H Rover and any TOA teams that you build centered around him. So that's a bit of a bummer. Yet with that being said, this problem may solve itself in the future should Phoebe acquire any new DOT-centric teammates that can comfortably replace Spectro Rover's position in her teams. I will say, don't worry about switching your Rover builds around constantly being a potential annoyance, because the absolute chads over at Kuro Games have finally introduced Echo loadouts into the game. So at the very least, even if this may make TOA team building somewhat awkward for all of you big Rover enjoyers out there, at least it's going to be very intuitive to change their builds back and forth. Genuinely, Kuro, that's huge. The change is very much appreciated. Considering how Phoebe is releasing with a fresh new playstyle, and a totally beginner-friendly free-to-play team is her absolute best in slot, I think it's safe to say that the value of this unit is genuinely crazy. She's going to be an S-tier damage dealer upon arrival, and that is honestly nothing to scoff at. Once again, she's not replacing Jinchi. However, she is 100% joining the likes of Jinchi, Carlotta, and Camellia as some of the best DPSs in the entire game. When she eventually does get her own version of Joja, assuming that her dedicated supports will end up being significantly higher quality than Roshia, I genuinely fear for how powerful she's going to become. This does actually lead me to be quite excited for her upcoming story, since I'm imagining that she's going to play a big role in 2.1 if this is the power level that we're merely starting out with. Amazing unit. I have a lot more videos that I intend to make on her, because there's actually a lot to unpack in regards to this unit. But so far, I'm really pleased with her state, because she's already going to be joining the top echelon of DPS characters upon arrival. Her performance over time is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I seriously would not be surprised if she became close to the best DPS in the entire game, should she get any major boost in performance from here on out. Good job, Kuro. Funnily, there's a lot of coincidences that strike me with this character. I'm a huge DOT main in Honkai Star Rail. I've been a Kafka main in that game ever since day one of a release. To this day, no matter how bad DOT becomes, I'm always gonna stick to my guns as a DOT main. Then, Wuthering Waves comes along and creates a DOT DPS unit, and we both just so happen to be European blonde women. I guess this is the closest I'm ever gonna get to literally being put in a gacha game, huh? Just give her a box of Jaffa cakes and it's 1-to-1. She features my favorite damage dealing archetype in any RPG. I've always been a DOT person, so it feels like Kuro really wants me to pull this unit. We'll see how much Phoebe actually wants to be on my account when it comes time to pull for her. My birthday is actually gonna happen during her banner too. February 20th. Huh. I'll be trying to pull for sure. It feels like it was quote-unquote meant to happen. In any case, will you be pulling for her too, or is it a skip? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturdays, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so that we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Phoebe's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and man, Phoebe looks like the type of person to leave milk and cookies out for Santa, or the type to eat like a literal cube of sugar. You know what I mean?